Hi everyone, welcome to this special edition of ICTBC for the Big Read Wichita. We're happy you could join us. We are discussing The Latehomecomer by Kalia Young. I had to get clarification on how to pronounce it because I wanted to do it right. I'm Sarah.
I'm Racine.
And we're very happy that you could join us. Please continue keep discussing. Chime in with whatever you've got in the comments below, and we'll just kind of get going.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about the book first?
That's probably smart.
Just throwing it out.
This is a family memoir, which I didn't really know what that meant. I guess, the story of the family, but I thought that it was a lot more than that. It follows a family's journey from the jungles of Laos they escape after the Vietnam War because the Laotian, I don't know the politics of it, and I don't want to say something false, but a group from the communist part of that area was starting to systematically get rid of all of the Hmong people who had helped with the Americans during the war. So they're being chased basically out of the jungle by bullets and chemical warfare, and they escape to Thailand, where they are in refugee camps for a while. And this is a pretty massive family. I mean, the matriarch had, I believe, 7 sons with her all throughout, and then they all had their families with varying numbers of children. And so we're not talking about just a couple people escaping, we're talking about this massive effort to get their family off. Out of Laos into Thailand, and then from Thailand they immigrate to America as refugees of war. And it's a pretty straightforward journey. They go here, they go here, they go here, but the way that it's told is almost poetic. It becomes a tribute to this matriarch, grandma, who kept the family together. She was kind of the glue. But also the strength. I don't know. It was beautifully written.
Well, and
what did I miss?
It's funny you're talking about the writing. I did something that I say is just as good as reading. I listened to the book.
Yes.
And that was interesting because this time it wasn't effective.
Okay.
Because the main character, when she comes to America, she's going to school, and she has problems. What was it? She described it as English was rough or brutal on her tongue.
I don't remember that particular line.
Yeah, but it was like, so she didn't want to speak. Well, she felt weird. She had an older sister, Dob, and then it was...
Well, I remember her dad, when he spoke English, she had this very clear memory of her dad. They went to the grocery store to ask for diapers, and they couldn't find them in the store, so they asked for help. And she said, she was asking, and her dad asked for the diapers, but his voice lost its strength. He was speaking English and not their traditional Hmong language. So it lost its strength, its weight.
And so I think this book is very much about language and how we speak.
Among other things, this book is about so many things.
Yeah, what would be the other?
There's
family.
Generational family,
oh,
right?
Yeah.
Because we're not just talking about one group. You've got the grandkids, you've got the uncles and aunts, you've got grandma and her stories from before there were children. And that there's going to be the grandkids are getting older and they're going to start having their kids. So potentially 4 generations of stories going on in this book. Though we follow mostly grandmothers and Kalia's story.
Well, and it's interesting, one of the ways that they transmit their stories are through story cloths. So...
Oh, you want to talk about that?
Well, just real quick, we're giving away another copy. And here's the point of the contest. If you can answer, these story cloths tell the story of their families, their histories.
Because they couldn't actually write anything down. Because when they were running through the jungle, they had to, anything that they wrote down was confiscated and burned. And anyway, plus they weren't living lives that allowed them to have keepsakes. beyond the clothes on their back. Go ahead,
Right.
continue.
So, in your family story cloth, what would be one of the elements that would be included? So it's kind of a way for you to contribute what you think would be interesting. What would be a main theme of your family?
Yeah.
So I'm
You don't
excited
have to get all up into all
yeah.
of that, but you know, but yeah, tell us about what would be in your story cloth, and then we'll give you a free copy of the book. We'll select just the first person to comment.
Yeah, the first person.
Okay.
Well, and two, I mean, really, I recommend going in and do the Google image search and look for Hmong story cloths, because it's really interesting.
Well,
There's stories of, it's like you can tell the family were farmers and they were living, they would farm and they would harvest. And then you see the stories of the soldiers. I was like, whoa.
Let's
That
not say
made me-
first, Brett, so that we don't have you jumping. Let's not say first. We'll randomly select one, because I want people to have a chance to think about it.
Well, that's true. Okay.
So at the end, tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, we will randomly select from the story cloth, family story cloth answers, and give away this book, okay? And if you have read it already, take this book and share it. It's a beautiful story that I think everybody that I've talked to that's read it, I mean, it being the big read, everybody's reading it, they've all taken something from it. They found a personal reflection in this family, in one of the characters, and I say characters, you say characters, but these are real people. Like,
Right. What was the most touching part of the book for you?
Well, I didn't think of that. But I mean, I think there is so much, it's such a rich story. Kalia's relationship with her grandmother, it is a common thread throughout, right? Grandma's this very strong person that she always looks to. She even writes, I think her grandmother was the most inspiring person she's ever met. And I mean, she wrote this whole book as a tribute to her grandmother, I would argue. I mean, yes, everybody else is present in it, and yes, it has a lot to do with her parents and her sister, but it's really about her grandmother and her grandmother's story. And so I have a close relationship with my grandmother, and so it gave me some feelings there, and it just kind of makes me want to run out and hug my grandmother. But, that's kind of what I took from it. I know another person I spoke to found it so interesting that they're the same age as the author, or close to that age, and we were running around riding bicycles, and I don't know, going to the library and the convenience store to buy Big League Chew, and they're escaping genocide and living in refugee camps trying to survive. And so it's just this, there's just so many things that you could take from it. What about you?
I would say that actually the story of survival and the concept of leaving home and packing up everything or leaving a lot of things that you love, and then coming to a whole new place that you've never been to, that you have no concept of. She talks about when she comes to America, the first night they sleep on the first or the second floor, and the only thing that's supporting them is the floor, and it's like even in America they sleep on the air.
Because it's up
And I
above,
thought,
it's like a second story.
Yeah, and I thought that was touching. What was it? She was looking at a man eating nuggets. He dipped his chicken in the yellow sauce, and
that was so gross because it looked like baby.
It looked like something bad, and it grossed her out as a kid, and she'd never eat anything yellow. So, I mean, it was, and to take for granted, how do you use a telephone? How do you ask where the bathroom is? How do you, Grandma, when they took Grandma, or when Grandma flew from California to Minneapolis, they gave her a deck of cards, like note cards, around her neck, and there was the picture for the bathroom, and she would hold that up, and you know, where's the bathroom, or, you know, can I have some water?
Mm-hmm.
And so being in a place where you do not know the language, I think would just, how do you exist? How do you survive? How do you adapt?
And when you're that, when you've lived a full life, like, at what point do you just?
And that's one of the things she says in the book, is that the older ones and the younger ones, what was it? Either you got old or you grew up.
Oh, yeah.
In adapting to life in a new place. And that was very telling, I thought. You know,
I
grandmother...
did never take it that way until you just said it, but that's so true.
You know, grandmother didn't have any choice just to grow older, but her children, and especially Ms. Young's, you know, father, he had to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
He had to start working. He couldn't be on welfare. It was touching. And, you know, the Americans didn't exactly welcome him, and that's okay. They were able to figure out how to, you know, pull together and make a community. Okay, so I think we're 13 minutes
Are we 13
in.
minutes in? We're 12 minutes in. But first of all, do we have commenters yet? Nobody's joining us yet? That's all right. Keep it coming. We're going to keep talking. We are actually going to share, if any of you are playing the Big Read game. Oh, Big Read game. It's on the back of your bookmark. It's a scavenger hunt meets trivia meets game. And at minute 13, we had promised that Racine would share the clue for clue number 7, I believe. Is it clue number? No, I think it's clue number 9. I think it's clue number 9. But do you know what word it is? Because I think I told you, but you know what? It's Vietnam War. And so that is going to be your passcode for clue number 9, which should take you through to the end.
Hi, blink my eyes, it's a brand new day.
Oh, it's fine. It's good. It's
Okay.
good. And you know what? If you're just starting playing the game and you haven't quite heard of what this is, feel free to go back. I mean, any of the clues where we have required that you attend something, those are all on our Big Read Facebook page, and the rest of them are all trivia questions that you can look up online or in the book. And then
But
there's
you want
some
to
great
read.
prizes.
You want to read the book.
Oh, yeah. You totally do. I would hope that if you haven't, you would tell us about your story cloth so we could give you one. And if you have, that you share it with somebody else. The great prizes for this game, too. Did I tell you what the prizes are?
No.
They are, we got some swag from KMUW and KPTS, both of our media sponsors. And then Central Standard Brewery, who is another partner, they hosted a book club at the beginning of the month for us. They've also given us some gift cards and I think a hat from Central Standard.
Nice.
And then we've got some signed copies of the book for that too. So anyway, good things in the prize package, and we'll be doing drawings in November when the Big Read ends. So anyway, let's jump back in. Oh, so I was talking to Racine earlier while we were trying to figure out our talking points for this discussion, because that's how we prep. And this is one of the first books I think we've read that I really, really liked, and I didn't have a lot of problems with. So all of the other books, I found one thing that bothered me or that I didn't quite sit well and I could talk about, and it gave me lots of opportunity for discussion. But this book, I finished it and I was just like, wow, that was beautiful. And like, that's how I ended it. Those were my final thoughts, not, well, I wish they would have done this here. You know, even reading memoirs, there's always something where I'm like, oh, I wish they would have really dived into this part or this part. But
well, and I think the story's very positive.
it is positive.
Because they came from such a horrible place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was kind of thinking of. It's like, well, you're not hearing about the the first generation kids that have come to America. And sometimes I think they're like wild.
Yeah.
And, it happens because you have parents that have come from such a horrible place. They place so much stress on their kids. I think what she wanted to do, the author wanted to do, was focused on the beauty
Yeah. Well, it's a tribute to her grandmother.
yeah, it's
You're
a
not gonna
tribute.
focus on.
And she's not going to talk about something negative. And you know what? That's okay.
So maybe we need a sequel
Well,
that talks about the plight of the first generation.
no, I don't think so.
Okay.
Because it's like good on her for. Normally, that would be a sticking craw,
Yeah.
part in my craw, because life isn't all roses and cherries.
But this wasn't all
this
roses and
starts
cherries.
out
Yeah, this was far from
sad,
that, yeah.
and it's a tough book to start out with because of war.
Yeah.
I mean,
And it's life or death. It is literally
Right.
life or death. Like if they do not move fast enough, they will get caught by a rifle or a bomb. They had to cross the river and almost drown with a baby strapped to their chest. I mean,
that's the suspense,
Yeah.
that's the conflict, and then coming to America and adjusting. That's the other conflict.
yeah.
So I thought she did a wonderful job with it.
I agree.
And so, all right, you've got the immigrant story. If you're wanting other immigrant stories, we made a list, and we'll be posting that to the page. One of them's Ruta Seepe's Salt to the Sea, about a girl who comes to America. These are all pretty much people that have immigrated to America. A new one recently, The Sympathizer, Wynn's book about assimilating into America and learning the new culture and being part of it. We're posting those.
There's
And-
one that I would like to add to your list that
Yes.
I didn't think about until right before we got started. And that it's actually a graphic novel that is also a family memoir. It's about a family that that fled from Vietnam.
Yeah.
And how the story and the struggle of the parents and some of the earlier kids, because these families, they were having kids in refugee camps, and then they would come over and have more kids, and so you've got half the kids that know the struggle and half the kids that maybe just hear about it secondhand. But anyway, so it's all about the parents who come to America and the kids, and how all of this pain and struggling kind of affected them their whole lives. It's beautifully done as well. It's called The Best We Could Do. I can't think of the author off the top of my head, but it is a graphic novel. It came out this last year. Another
There's
really great refugee
Saphiri's
story.
Persepolis. That's another graphic novel that tells the amazing story of a girl whose family leaves Iran in the late 80s. And that one was one of my favorites, my perennial favorites.
Yeah, it was
both
well
the
done.
book and the movie.
I never saw the movie, but I definitely read the book. So.
It's beautiful, beautiful art.
Um,
Okay, so do you want
Is
me
there
to talk
anything else
about the
that we
new
want
one?
to talk about this book? I feel like we didn't even dive in, but it's just okay. Looks like we have some comments. Let's see what they have to say.
Okay, well, Noelle jumped in saying, the story is positive, like Racine says, and universal. As strange as the story seems in part to U.S. readers, the family relationships are completely identifiable and relatable.
Agree.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, and I think that's too, every family has a story. I'm glad she mentioned that, because another thing that I liked that she did with this book was take native stories. And stories were a big part. You're in a refugee camp, there's no TV, there's no books. So the oral tradition is very important.
Absolutely.
And so I think I'm sure everybody has the family stories that you get together and you talk about, remember when Uncle so-and-so
And the
did
family
such
meetings.
and such. And family meetings. They had huge family meetings because in just this one family,
Yeah.
there's 300 cousins, first
I
cousins.
think there's she had like 300 descendants. So
Grandmother
you've got
had 300
7 sons. Plus, I didn't even realize that there were some aunts that had come over at different times. Like one aunt had gone to France and then met up with the family after. Anyway, I didn't even realize that there were
Well,
other.
she had daughters, but I think too, one of the things is that when you married, as a daughter, you left
Yeah,
your
right.
family, and you became a part of the new family. So really, in essence, she had 7 daughters because she had 7 daughter-in-laws.
Yeah, she did. And they all had kids. And then, they're starting to have kids and so 250 grandchildren, she had said. 300 something descendants. I don't know. It's insane. 500
That was cool.
people crowded in to go to her funeral. Like, can you imagine?
And the picture of grandmother's funeral.
All the flowers.
It's a room filled with flowers, and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Do we have any more comments?
Jane had a question and a comment.
Okay, great.
The comment first, I thought it was very sad. I wanted the ending to be more uplifting.
But I think, that's interesting. And I can see how that would be something that you would want, because I think I also wanted it too, but it was very much in line with how Grandma was, right? Grandma, I love you. I know, right? It wasn't flowery. It wasn't grandiose. It was, and she was prepping them all for her death for years before, right? Grandma's tired. Grandma's old. Grandma's bones don't work as well. I just want a good bed to lay down in. I just, I think it was a tribute and an ending that fit with Grandma. And you may disagree with me on that, and that's okay. I think that's the beauty of books and having opinions. But that's how I kind of took it. Because I like crave that happy ending at the end. But
I think they had happy. Okay.
I have another point.
It ends at a funeral. You just.
I know, I have so many feelings. Go ahead.
It ends at a funeral, but you know that the story's going to go on.
Yeah.
And become good. And this is a quote that I had heard. Every good ending is the start of a good new story.
Oh, that's nice.
And I wish I knew who said it. So, but I mean, this story will go on.
Yeah. And
It's not the ending. She's going to carry forth her grandmother in her heart. So I'm kind of with you, but at the same time, I don't know. It seemed appropriate.
Yeah. And the other point that I wanted
Fitting.
to make was that Grandma had the ultimate win, right? She lived to 93 years old, they think. They don't really know. And she died of natural causes. She didn't die early from some outside source. Her body, told her when it was time to go. Her spirit told her when it was time to go. And so I feel like that in a way is uplifting because she kind of won, right? She beat all the external sources and got to choose when she left.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, thank you, Jane, and thank you,
love
Noel,
that
for
comment
the
and the
comments.
question.
Yeah.
And Jane's question was, what does the title mean?
So, the Latehomecomer was the title of part 4, which is all about her grandmother's end of life. And I took it to mean, because I thought about that too, I took it to mean it was grandmother. Grandmother lived all the way to the end and then had to go home, right? We followed her back through her life at her funeral when she, the man was reading all of the...
talks her story through,
Which is
from
beautiful.
coming to California, or going to Minneapolis from California. She was in Shanghai, or she flew to Tokyo, and then before that it was Thailand, before
Right.
that it was Laos, going back, even back to her home where her baby armor is buried. And
to the mountain where grandfather was buried.
right, and so that's how she finds home, and I think that that's very interesting. It's about home,
It's about finding home.
finding your family, finding where you belong. But I'm not an expert. She is.
I don't think that's accurate either. But that's kind of what I took it to mean. This that she lived out her full life and then found her way back home with the chicken and her sons guiding the way.
Well, it's a long journey. She needed something to eat.
I think it was supposed to be her friend. That's what they said.
Oh no.
It's okay.
Okay, on that
He likes
note,
some stuff. It's fine.
let's
Two
talk
more questions.
about.
We got two more
Oh,
comments, and
Yeah.
then I know we have to talk about the next one.
Okay, Noelle wanted to jump in again about Racine's recommendation. She said the Sympathizer is great.
Great.
It's completely different than Latehomecomer, but it's a great book.
Good. Thanks, Noelle.
And then Stephanie had this thought, wondering if people who heard her, the author, speak in Wichita had new thoughts on her story after hearing her speak.
I unfortunately had to work here that night, so I didn't get to go. But I would love for that conversation thread to continue in the comments. So please chime in and discuss with each other. Racine and I will jump in as appropriate. And I think that this book warrants so much more discussion that I would love for it to keep going. So we'll keep it going as long as we can. So comment about your story cloth to get a copy of the free book. Play our big read game. Again, that passcode for clue number 9 is Vietnam War. And that should get you on to the final clue. And so, I think it's time that we wrap up. We've already gone a little bit long, but we tend to do that. Next month, for our November ICTBC, we're reading Into Thin Air by John Krakauer. Racine, please tell us about it.
It's the story about survival in a very harsh place.
Another one.
I know, and it's another nonfiction book. So that's kind of interesting that we're
You say
breaking it up.
nonfiction, but you know, John Krakauer, he's one of the first people that I read that I was like, oh, nonfiction isn't that bad. Like, his books read
Right.
like a story.
It is a story.
Real story. It's just that he writes in a compelling way that kind of draws you in, much like I think a fiction book does.
Yeah.
I had read Under the Banner of Heaven, which was pretty intense but awesome. So I'm excited to read this one.
Yeah, this is going to be a great one.
I think, the one about Everest, right?
Correct.
He's had a couple. They're all really good. And I think they make them all into movies too. So,
Well, and he was there when there were a large number of people that were trying to get to the summit of Everest. And he was there when they lost a significant number of people due to lack of oxygen reserves and bad leadership. So,
yikes. Sounds like it's going to be drama
yeah.
filled. But good. Well, we hope you join us for that one next month. And then we'll keep this conversation going in the comments. Thank you for joining us. Thanks, Racine. Always a pleasure.
Thank
talking
you,
to
Sarah. It's always a pleasure talking with you.
We'll see you next month.